is up, family and friends? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to get into the Drivetrain mock-up mount and adding in a heck of a lot more tube into this chassis, so that way I can get the motor fully tied in, I can get the transmission fully tied in, I can get some cross members in, and I can start figuring out seat locations for this bad boy. So if you guys have been following on Instagram and whatnot, I posted up a little while ago about this Atlas mock-up transfer case by Urban 3D. This thing is fully 3D printed. It is really dope, and it basically mimics an Atlas 2 transfer case, which is really sweet because it gives me an idea of how it's going to kind of sit in the chassis. It makes clocking super easy. Whole thing only weighs 3 pounds, so super light, a lot easier to maneuver and figure this thing around than actually using an Atlas itself, which is a lot heavier. Those things are like about 120 pounds, give or take, roughly. So this thing is very, very nice, and it kind of gives me an idea of where things are going to sit in the chassis. I want to work up all the rest of the tubing on the interior portion of the chassis, so that way that is all in place. Got a bunch of 1 3/4, 1.5 DOM laying there. Basically, I'll do all the outer structure-y stuff in 1 3/4, and then some of the smaller, more tie-in pieces are going to be 1.5, save a little bit of weight as well as money. And inside tube to inside tube is 50 1/4 inches. So I got this rear crossmember tube here, notched out, measured out. Now this one is going to be slightly tricky. It is not just going to be a kind of straight across cut, because I have this tube here and the weld there and a little bit of the weld there. So basically it's gonna need some additional kind of notching. And I could, you know, kind of finagle it and take a little bit off at a time, or I can use this little doohickey, which I really, really like, from Century. This is for 1 3/4. Basically, I have a shorter piece of tube. I can slide this over and press the pins on and figure out exactly what this is going to look like. Then I can slide it up on the real tube, trace it out with a pen, and then figure out where my additional cuts are going to be. So I'm gonna use this. It's gonna make it a little bit quicker and easier. All right, after some finagling, I got my tube exactly where I want it to be. Hey, ignore the leaf blower in the background, just so you guys can kind of see. In order to make that fit exactly flush with the welds, these are sort of the little additional sort of cutouts that needed to go into this piece of tube so it fits nice and snug. Could you do it without that? Sure, I'm sure you could, but that definitely made it a lot easier and quicker. And what I did is I would kind of just take a little bit off at a time. You can kind of see sort of the mark there with the Sharpie. And then I would kind of come back, test fit it up, take a little bit more off so that way I didn't overdo it. And then I got it to the point where she was snug with no major gap. And I'm happy with that. So anyway, this side is done. Now I need to duplicate it on that side there. And then I have these kind of TMR tube mounts, the keyed ones. So basically I'll weld those in place, and then the center portion of that tube will be able to lift up and out. Back at it, guys, another night, and making some solid progress on the drivetrain, as well as a few cross members. Put the camera down just so I could kind of focus and get to work. I'll show you where I'm at, and then we are going to lay out some of the tube, tack it in place, and hopefully that'll be a good stopping place for this evening. So let me show you. A rear tube in the back, have some TMR tube mount disconnects right there, so I can be able to pop out that little center section and the Atlas can back out. I obviously ran rails all the way to the front, so here to there, there to right about there. And right now I have a tube that is going to go right across the transmission portion. So basically what I'm going to do, if you guys can see kind of on that side where it's sanded down, so basically right off of this piece of tube right here, I'm going to have a tube that's going to run straight across. Same exact concept as the one in the rear, so it is going to have the TMR disconnects, so that way the piece of tube in the center can pop off of it. So a little bit about this and why I'm doing it this way. One, I'm using Busted Knuckles top mount Turbo 400 transmission mount, so I am going to do some sort of bracket that is going to connect along this piece of tubing right here. But what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to take everything out with ease. So for example, I have these lovely U-doors right here, which make things really, really nice. So if I wanted to pop the seats out, pop the floor plans out, and then yank the transmission out, or the Atlas or anything for that matter, I can actually pull it right out of the top, which is pretty sweet. The bottom is obviously fully solid, so I can't, drop the bottom out and drop the trans out of there. So the idea and what I'm trying to make sure I do is make things as easily removable if needed, if when needed, hopefully never. But anyway, I want to be able to get it out with ease and not have to struggle and figure that out. Because if I weld everything on the top and everything's welded in on the bottom, then the only way to get the transmission out would be if I yank the motor out. And I don't want to have to do any of that. That sounds like a bunch of garbage. So that's the idea. That's the plan, at least. And we're going to go with it. This is my stopping point for the night. I got the two tubes that run from the back of the chassis all the way to sort of the front on both sides. Rear bar, I got the transmission cross member in. Everything's all tacked in. I'm not gonna final weld everything until it's 100% that it is staying exactly where it is. But yeah, I am pretty pumped. So everything is as level as could be. It's probably why it took me so long. I am pretty meticulous with my stuff, and unfortunately because of that it takes a lot longer. But anyway, I'm happy with that, a 0.1 difference. you know, that's pretty much how all the tubes are. They're all within 0.1 of a sort of parallel tube to it, just to make sure it meshes up properly. So anyway, the next thing on the docket here is I need to cut up some plate. What I'm going to do is run a, I kind of don't have a bushing at the moment, but what I need to do is cut up some plate so that I obviously can mount that on top of the transmission mount that Busted Knuckle has here. I'm gonna run some kind of mount off of this tube onto a bushing, and then some DOM that'll connect from the bushing down to the tube. And then eventually, when the Atlas is in, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'll probably top mount an Atlas, and I'll do same thing. I'll do a bushing, and then I'll run a straight tube kind of in between the two for some extra support. And then I'm gonna start working on the head mounts. So in addition to the motor mounts, which you guys can see there, tube, I'm gonna be running a piece of plate and a piece of plate, and then I'm gonna figure out some kind of head mount tie in to the top of the cage. A lot of the big name buggy people do it. It's gonna help sort of minimize how much the driveline moves in the chassis and kind of flexes around. So once I can get this styled in, I'll start the head mounts, and then the driveline minus the Atlas, because obviously this is just a mock-up Atlas, which, as you guys can see, lots of room. I actually only have it clocked on the first setting. So up one would be perfectly straight, which probably would clear, but just for driveline angle and getting that down a little bit lower, I'm definitely gonna clock it either the first or second setting. I don't know exactly what the degrees is. I haven't really kind of played around with that too much yet, but anyway, I have more room to clock it down if I choose to, but I got lots of room to kind of spare in here. So anyway, guys, I'm pretty stoked. I'm also pretty tired, and this is a good spot to call this video quits. On my next video, I will be focusing on the transmission mount and getting that all sort of figured up. Maybe even I'll get the head mounts sort of squeaked and snuck in there as well. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna call it a night. If you guys enjoyed what you saw in this video, definitely be sure to smash that thumbs up button and give this video a like. Smash the subscribe button below so you guys can follow along this epic journey. And as always, thanks for stopping by. God bless, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.